What if I told you that Hamilton and Leclerc's accidents in Brazil were not a coincidence, but proof that Ferrari is on the brink of an unprecedented internal war? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. Interlagos. Just saying the name of the Brazilian circuit awakens images of chaos, glory, and tragedy in the collective memory of Formula One. But what happened at the 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix was much more than a complicated race. It was a complete implosion. A sporting earthquake whose aftershocks still resonate in Maranello, and that could have definitive consequences in the fight for the championship and in the immediate future of the Scuderia Ferrari. Even before the weekend, the atmosphere in the paddock was already tense. Ferrari arrived in Sao Paulo occupying second position in the Constructors' Championship, followed closely by Mercedes and Red Bull. Expectations were high, but cautious. The performance simulations were not particularly promising, and according to internal sources, there was already concern about the adaptation of the SF25 to the technical, undulating, and demanding layout of Interlagos, especially due to the heat and altitude. This circuit is unforgiving of aerodynamic and traction weaknesses. Ferrari knew it. Still, no one was prepared for the level of disaster that would come. Friday's sprint qualifying was the first alarm signal. Lewis Hamilton was eliminated in SQ2. Charles Leclerc barely managed to get into SQ3, but his performance was erratic. The same pattern was repeated on Saturday. Hamilton did not make it past Q2 and started from 13th position. Leclerc would do it from the 9th. With these results, any option to control the race from strategy was practically ruled out. Ferrari was forced to play defensively, to improvise, to survive. And that, on a circuit like Interlagos, is usually a recipe for disaster. Sunday morning brought stable weather but deceptive track conditions, high heat on the asphalt and crosswinds on the straights. The pressure was immense. Internally, it was known that a bad result in Brazil would not only jeopardize the runners-up position, but would also call into question the legitimacy of Vasseur's new project and his duo of star drivers. At Ferrari, there is little room for failure. Even less so when you have signed a legend like Hamilton to return the lost glory. What followed was an example of how a race can become a real-time autopsy of a team's collapse. In the first meters after the lights went out, there were scenes of absolute chaos in the middle area of the platoon. Hamilton, in the eye of the hurricane, was trapped between cars fighting for centimeters of track. In parallel, Leclerc had a not very aggressive start, immediately losing ground to the McLaren and Mercedes. Within minutes, both Ferraris had been isolated from the leading groups. Instead of chasing points, they were trying not to be eliminated. The feeling of helplessness was palpable. The radios were filled with tense messages, complaints about the car's behavior, the early degradation of the tires, the lack of traction. But nothing could prepare the team for what was about to happen. This beginning was only the first act of a much larger drama, one that would unleash the perfect storm within Ferrari and call into question the emotional and technical stability of its two central figures. Hell had begun, and the worst was yet to come. When Lewis Hamilton signed with Ferrari, many considered it a dramatic but inevitable turn in his career. A symbolic step towards a search for one last redemption. A new chapter to close his legacy with an 8th title that has escaped him amidst controversies, frustrations, and a technical decline at Mercedes. His arrival in Maranello was received as a declaration of intent to unite the most successful name in the recent history of F1 with the most emblematic team in the sport. But at Interlagos, all that symbolism violently collided with reality. From the first day of activity in Brazil, Hamilton did not find a rhythm. He was eliminated early in both the sprint qualifying and the main qualifying on Saturday. His frustration was already evident, not only in his radio messages, but in his body language inside and outside the car. I have started from 13th place, an area of the platoon where talent is necessary, but not always sufficient to survive. Interlagos, with its first sharp downhill corner, is known for turning clean exits into true battlefields. And Hamilton was right in the center of the chaos. The first thing that marked his career was the touch with Carlos Sainz. Ironies of fate. Sainz, whom Hamilton replaced at Ferrari, was the first driver to ruin his day. Contact in turn 1 damaged the SF25's flat bottom. A slight touch in appearance, but one that had important aerodynamic consequences. Hamilton knew it immediately. Over the radio, he warned that the rear of the car was uncontrollable. What at first glance seemed like another complaint from the British soon revealed itself to be a prophetic warning. From that moment on, the car began to behave erratically. Without consistent downforce, every corner became Russian roulette. But the real disaster had not yet come. What ended up destroying his career happened just a few laps later, in the middle of the main straight. There, in an attempt to regain positions, Hamilton got dangerously close to Franco Colapinto's Alpine. I was looking for the slipstream, a clean and calculated overtaking. But the calculation failed. At the moment Lewis moved to the left, the Argentine did the same. The result was a direct impact between the nose of the Ferrari and the side of the Alpine. Hamilton's front wing flew off and became partially trapped under the chassis. What followed was a reflex action of total chaos. Ferrari called him to the pits in complete confusion under the safety car. They changed the spoiler, but the damage to the flat bottom was deeper. The car had lost between 30 and 40 points of downforce, according to Vasseur. In practical terms, that meant the SF-25 no longer had any balance. It became undrivable, especially in the fast sections of the circuit. It was like driving a car with a loose rear axle. Every stop was a threat. Every curve, a battle lost before it begins. And despite everything, Hamilton continued. He made several more turns. "I have fought," he complained. He fought against a completely unstable car. But it was useless. His lap times plummeted. His engineer, Riccardo Adami, tried to help him with balance changes, line suggestions, anything that could mitigate the disaster. But there was no salvation possible. Finally, Ferrari made the decision to retire it. A retreat that was not simply strategic. It was a silent but forceful message. Not even Hamilton, with all his experience and talent, could rescue a car destroyed by other people's mistakes and risky decisions. The perfect storm had broken out over him, and Ferrari didn't know or couldn't offer him an umbrella. The truth is that Hamilton had arrived in Brazil looking to vindicate himself. But he left Interlagos with more doubts than certainties. Not about his talent, but about the environment that now surrounds him. An environment in crisis. A physically and conceptually damaged car. And a team that, once again, seems not to be up to the level of the man who pilots it. While Lewis Hamilton was dealing with a seriously damaged car and a host of adverse decisions, in the other Ferrari garage the situation was no less critical. Charles Leclerc had arrived at the Brazilian Grand Prix with the accumulated pressure of an inconsistent season. His overall performance in 2025 has ranged between technical brilliance and emotional frustration. At Interlagos, the balance definitely tilted towards the latter. And it was after the race that the final bombshell was unleashed. Leaks from within the team revealed that Leclerc had partially disobeyed the wall's instructions to enter the pits on the lap after contact. In addition, some sources suggested growing unrest among the engineers assigned to each car, especially due to the lack of clarity in decision hierarchies. Leclerc, for his part, was cryptic in his post-race statements. "I made a decision that I thought was the right one at the time. Now I just have to learn from it." The double retirement in Brazil was not simply the result of two individual errors. It was the visible manifestation of a deeper leadership problem. A confused technical team, drivers who make decisions alone during the race, radios loaded with uncertainty, and a management that responds evasively to the press. Everything points to a structure without real control. Fred Vasseur, the team manager, has tried to maintain a firm stance. In interviews after the debacle, he spoke of unfortunate factors, internal evaluations, and consensus decisions. But at no time did he offer clear answers about the most important thing. Who has the last word within Ferrari when everything falls apart? In the case of Lewis Hamilton, the Brazilian GP was a turning point. Not because of the mistake on the track that can happen even to the greatest, but because of the context that surrounded it. His frustration with the Ferrari wall, his reaction after the penalty. Everything indicated a pilot who is beginning to question the project he embraced with so much enthusiasm just a few months ago. What follows, therefore, is much more than a season finale. It is an opportunity to redefine priorities, to establish clear roles, to build or rebuild a team that not only has potential, but also the authority to execute it. Ferrari must decide if it wants to continue being the team that almost won or finally become the one that wins again. And for Hamilton and Leclerc, time is running out. What they do or don't do in the coming weeks will not only determine their relationship with Ferrari, but also their legacy within contemporary Formula One. Because in this sport, greatness is not measured by talent alone, but by the ability to survive and thrive in the midst of chaos. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.